Infant cognitive development is the study of how psychological processes involved in thinking and knowing develop in young children. Information is acquired in a number of ways, including through sight, sound, touch, taste, smell and language, all of which require processing by our cognitive system. Scientific investigation in this field has its origin in the first half of the 20th century. An early and influential theory in this field is Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Since Piaget's contribution to the field, infant cognitive development and methods for its investigation have advanced considerably. For example, Neo-Piagetian theories of cognitive development. Overview. Tabula rasa is a theory that the mind is at birth a blank slate without any rules for processing data. That data is added and rules for processing it are formed solely by one's sensory experiences. The modern idea of the theory is mostly attributed to John Locke's An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, written in the 17th century. Its corollary, nativism, argues that we are born with certain cognitive modules that allow us to learn and acquire certain skills, such as language, and is most associated with the recent work of Noam Chomsky, Jerry Fedor, and Steven Pinker. If one accepts that nothing is known until learned, and that everyone shares a basic common sense, it appears infants must, to some degree, make some specific ontological inferences about how the world works, and what kinds of things it contains. This procedure is studied in psychology and its validity is studied in philosophy. We acquire these ordinary beliefs at an early age and we take them for granted in everyday life. Then, because we are also self-reflective creatures, we turn back on our common sense assumptions and find them to be more puzzling and problematic than we had bargained for. The concepts we habitually employ raise the kinds of disturbing questions we call philosophical. Jean Piaget. Through observations of children, Jean Piaget established a theory of cognitive development. According to Piaget's theory of cognitive development, there are 4 stages of cognitive development: sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage, formal operational stage. Infant cognitive development occurs in the sensory motor stage, which starts at birth and extends until the infant is about 2 years of age. The sensory motor stage is made up of 6 substages. Lev Vygotsky was also very influential in cognitive development theory. His theory included the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky also believed that social and cultural factors contributed heavily to cognitive development. The development of mental processes, attention memory. The development of memory in children becomes evident within the first 2 to 3 years of a child's life as they show considerable advances in declarative memory. This enhancement continues into adolescence with major developments in short-term memory, working memory, long-term memory and autobiographical memory. Research on the development of memory has indicated that declarative or explicit memory may exist in infants who are even younger than 2 years old. For example, newborns who are less than 3 days old demonstrate a preference for the mother's own voice. Perception, attribution of causality. The perception of causality was initially studied by Albert Michaux, where he presented adults with animated images of moving balls. By manipulating the direction and timing of the moving balls, he was able to influence participants' perception of causality. There is contradicting evidence on whether causal perception is innate and present at birth or whether it is a result of perception development. Through research with very young infants, many studies have shown support for the theory that humans are born with the mechanisms needed for the perception of causality. Recent research has even shown this ability in newborns only a few hours old. However, other studies have shown similar similar results received by Michaud in infants as young as 6 months but not younger. These studies support a more developmental progression of abilities required for the perception of causality. Object permanence. Object permanence is the understanding that an object continues to exist, even when one cannot see it or touch it. It is an important milestone in the stages of cognitive development for infants. Numerous tests regarding it have been done, usually involving a toy and a crude barrier which is placed in front of the toy, and then removed repeatedly. In early sensory motor stages, the infant is completely unable to comprehend object permanence. Psychologist Jean Piaget conducted experiments with infants which led him to conclude that this awareness was typically achieved at 8 to 9 months of age. Infants before this age are too young to understand object permanence, which explains why infants at this age do not cry when the mothers are gone out of sight, out of mind. A lack of object permanence can lead to A not B errors, where children look for an object at the location where they first discovered it rather than where they have just seen it placed. Depth perception. Studies in recent psychology also suggest that three-dimensionality and depth perception is not intuitive, and must be learned in infancy using an unconscious inference. Physical laws. Largely thanks to the innovative strategies developed by Renée Piaget and her colleagues, considerable knowledge has been gained about how young infants come to understand natural physical laws. Much of this research depends on carefully observing when infants react as if events are unexpected. For example, if an infant sees an object that appears to be suspended in midair and behaves as if this is unexpected, then this suggests that the infant has an understanding that things usually fall if they are not supported. Piaget and her colleagues have contributed evidence, for example, about infants' understanding of object permanence and the reasoning about hidden objects. Language metacognition. Self-awareness. The most common technique used in research for testing self-awareness in infants is a mirror test known as the Rouge test. The Rouge test works by applying a dot on an infant's face and then placing them in front of the mirror. If the infant investigates the dot on the nose by touching it, they are thought to realize their own existence and have achieved self-awareness. A number of research studies have used this technique and shown self-awareness to develop between 15 and 24 months of age. Some researchers take language such as I, me, my, etc. as an indicator of self-awareness. Rochat described a more in-depth developmental path in acquiring self-awareness through various stages. He described self-awareness as occurring in 5 stages beginning from birth. Symbolic thought. Symbolic thought refers to the ability to use words, images, and other symbols to represent words or feelings. During the pre-operational stage, a child's capacity for symbolism increases. This is shown by their increase in language use during this stage. This can also be seen by the way children play with objects. A stick becomes a sword and a box becomes armor. Children in this stage still might not understand that a map represents a real place, and that a picture of food does not have a smell.